Vacha Gachara Shota Shri Shrimad Bhakti Vedanta Swami Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Vari Vacha Gachara Shota Shri Shrimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nanda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sakahoshi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mathura Dham Ki Jai Navdweep Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Jagannathpur Dham Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Yamuna Maya Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru. All glories to Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the third canto, part 1, chapter 6, titled Creation of the Universal Form, text number, we're going to read, I'll do 1 together and then I'll do 2 by myself. Okay. Rishi Uvacha Iti Tasam Shwa Shaktinam Satinam Asametya Saha Prasupta Lokatan Lokatan Jananam Nishamya Gatim Ishvaraha Richuvacha Iti Dasham Swasaktinam Satinam Asametyasa Prasupta Loka Tantranam Nisamya Gatim Ishvaraha Rishirvacha Iti Dasham Swasaktinam Satinam Asametyasaha Prasupta Loka Tantranam Nisamya Gatim Ishvaraha Rishirvacha Iti Dasham Swasaktinam Satinam Asametyasaha Prasupta Loka Tantranam Nishamya Gatim Ishvaraha. Please repeat. Rishirvacha Satinam Asametyasaha Prasupta Loka Tantranam Nisamya Gatim Ishvaraha Rishirvacha Iti Dasham Swasaktinam Satinam Asametyasaha Prasupta Loka Tantranam Nisamya Gatim Ishvaraha Rishirvacha Iti Dasham Swasaktinam Satinam Asametyasaha Prasupta Loka Tantranam Prasupta Ishvaraha. Vishuvacha Atitasham Swasaktinam Prasiddham Pantametasaha Prasupta Loka Tantranam Nisamya Gatim Ishvaraha Vishuvacha Atitasham Swasaktinam Satinam Asameta Saha Prasupta Loka Tantranam Nisamya Gatim Ishvaraha Vishuvacha Ititasham Sasaktinam Satinam Asameta Saha Prasupta Loka Tantranam Nisamya Gatim Ishvaraha. Mataji's. Vishuvacha Ititasham Swasaktinam Atinam Asameta Saha Prasupta Loka Tantranam Nisamya Gatim Ishvaraha Vishuvacha Ititasham Swasaktinam Satinam Asameta Saha Prasupta Loka Tantranam Nisamya Gatim Ishvaraha. Okay, word for word. Rishi Uvacha. The Rishi Maitreya said, Iti, thus, Tasham, there, Swashaktinam, own potency, Satinam, so situated, Asamitya, without combination, Saha, he, the Lord, Prasupta, suspended, Lokatantranam, in the universal creations, Nishamya, hearing, Gatim, progress, Ishvaraha, the Lord. Okay, translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. The Rishi Maitreya said, the Lord thus heard about the suspension of the progressive creative functions of the universe due to the non-combination of his potencies, such as the Mahat Tattva. Purport. There is nothing wanting in the creation of the Lord. All the potencies are there in a dormant state, but unless they are combined by the will of the Lord, nothing can progress. The suspended progressive work of creation can be revived only by the direction of the Lord. Okay, I'm just going to chant the Sanskrit text too. Kala sanyam tada devim vibrak chaktim uru kramaha trayo vimsati tatvanam ganam yugapad avishat. Translation. Supreme Powerful Lord then simultaneously entered into the 23 elements with the goddess Kali, his external energy, who alone amalgamates all the different elements. Okay, purports. The ingredients of matter are counted as 23. The total material energy, false ego, sound, touch, form, taste, smell, earth, water, fire, air, sky, eye, ear, nose, tongue, skin, hand, leg, evacuating organ, genital, speech, and mind. All are combined together by the influence of time and are again dissolved in the course of time. Time, therefore, is the energy of the Lord and acts in her own way by the direction of the Lord. This energy is called Kali and is represented by the dark, destructive goddess, generally worshipped by persons influenced by the mode of darkness or ignorance in material existence. In the Vedic hymn, this process is described as Mula Prakritir Avikritir Mahadadya Prakriti Vikritaya Sapta Soda Sakastu Vikaro Na Prakritir Na Vikriti Purushaha. The energy which acts as material nature in a combination of 23 ingredients is not the final source of creation. The Lord enters into the elements and applies his energy called Kali. In all other Vedic scriptures, the same principle is accepted. In the Brahma Samhita 5:35, it is stated, Ekopi asho racha itam jagat ananda kotam kotim yak chaktir asti jagat anachaya yad antaha anantarashta paramanu chayantarastam govindamadi purusham tam aham bhajami. I worship the primeval Lord Govinda, who is the original personality of Godhead. By his partial plenary expansion, Mahavishnu, he enters into material nature, and then into each and every universe as Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, and then as Shirodakashayi Vishnu, and to all the elements, including every atom of matter. Such manifestations of cosmic creation are innumerable, both in the universes and in the individual atoms. Similarly, this is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 10:42. Atava bahu naitina kim gyatina tavarjana vistam vyaham idam krishnam ekam sina stito jagat. O Arjuna, there is no necessity of your knowing about my innumerable energies, which act in various ways. I enter into the material creation by my partial plenary expansion, Paramatma, or supersoul, or the supersoul, in all the universes and in all the elements thereof, and thus the work of creation goes on. The wonderful activities of material nature are due to Lord Krishna, and thus he is the final cause or the ultimate cause of all causes. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gananjana Salakaya Shakshur Litam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunath Vitamtam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakans Vitamsha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swami Niti Namane. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvisisa Srinivadi Pasasa Desitarne. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so this first verse, the Lord thus heard about the suspension of the progressive creative functions of the universe due to the non-combination of his potencies. So, where we're at in the Bhagavatam, the demigods headed by Lord Brahma, in the creation, they suspended their universal functions. In the previous verse, they were praying to Krishna for service. They felt this inability to perform their service. So this succession of prayers by the demigods is just, their plea to the Lord, their cry to the Lord to help them in their daily in their functions of the universal management. So, we have to, before I get into the essence of these two verses as far as the Sankhya philosophy, you have to understand the mood of the demigods. They had this mood of helplessness. Although they had some ability to perform their functions and their duties, they felt helpless. And their desire to serve the Lord was pure. Although the demigods have prone to have material desires, are you on the you're on the screen? Do you have the Veda? What's the Veda-based app or? Okay, I'm gonna be going through some verses, but anyway, so yeah, the demigods, they're devotees, and they're situated in the mode of goodness primarily, but they have the tendency to want to enjoy, as it was said yesterday. Nonetheless, this desire that they had to serve the Lord purely, we shouldn't imbibe that. We shouldn't necessarily strive to be demigods, but we should strive to have this desire, because through this desire, actually, the universe was was created through the Lord. The Lord empowered the demigods to perform their duties. So this sense of helplessness, you get this sense of helplessness by the pure desire to serve.
if you don't have a pure desire to serve, then you won't actually have this sense of helplessness. You'll feel like you're capable of doing everything on your own accord. So if you look at just certain devotees, I'm just looking over here. You see Gajendra and G Draupadi. Gajendra, he said he was fighting with the elephant in the water for thousands of years, a demigod's time. And it wasn't until he developed this sense of helplessness that Krishna actually came to save him. By his own endeavor, he was struggling. He thought, oh, I'm the king of the elephants. I have all my beautiful wives. I'm so opulent. I'm so famous. But when he came in uncharted territory with the crocodile, he was defeated, actually. He was defeated. And once he recognized he was defeated, that's when he surrendered. So we shouldn't get to the point where we're defeated to surrender, actually. There's different levels of devotees. Some devotees have to go through that. Some devotees, what it says that some devotees are intelligence, the topmost intelligence. Just by hearing, you realize, okay, I'm not going to be in Maya because I'm hearing from the scriptures, I'm hearing from my guru, I'm hearing from other devotees on being Maya. Other people, they have to experience it. Just different levels of intelligence. It's not that, you're not a devotee because you have to experience the suffering. It's just that it's just a different level of intelligence. Gajendra had this level of intelligence where he had to suffer in order to surrender. And then there's those who continually suffer, always suffering, and still continue to suffer. They might pray, oh God, please help me, and then go right back into the suffering. So this is the low-class intelligence. This is intelligence you see primarily of Christians, actually. Christians, they'll pray to God to help them, but then they go back into the foolishness. This isn't real God consciousness. You're using God as your order supplier. Nevertheless, Gajendra, he had this sense of helplessness. And also Draupadi, same instance. She was holding on to her clothing. It wasn't until she said, oh, Govinda. Then, Krishna came immediately. He says in the Bhagavad Gita in the 12th chapter, he's a swift deliverer. She's a swift deliverer from birth and death for those who are constantly attached to him, who with mind fixed on him. He's a swift deliverer. And you see in the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam is very unique because the principles of Bhagavad Gita are illustrated through the pastimes of the devotees. And we should have faith in these pastimes. It's not that, oh, this only happened to Gajendra, this only happens to Draupadi. No, we should develop a higher level of intelligence, though. We should develop a sense of understanding from the scriptures that being an illusion is not the goal of life. We shouldn't resort to suffering. Actually, in the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhu makes a point that until you're completely exhausted with material life, you can't make spiritual advancement. You have to be completely frustrated with the attempt to enjoy matter. If not, you're going to just be lower class intelligence. It might take birth after birth to purify this. So, but nonetheless, like I said, the demigods, they have this pure desire. We have to develop this. We have to imbibe this. Nonetheless, we shouldn't think ourselves better than demigods, actually. And I explain this. Can you go to Bhagavad Gita, text 7, verse 20, and go to the purport? 7, 20. Yeah, go to the purport. This second sentence. As long as the material contamination is not completely washed away, they are by nature non-devotees. I think I was mentioning this to Prabhu, that as long as the material contamination is not completely washed away, by nature, we can have these non-devotional tendencies. Like the difference, demigods were born, their body is made of goodness. Everybody, we're born, and especially in the age of Kali, we're born in ignorance, actually. So even within Krishna consciousness, we have to be always cognizant of the fact of our non-devotional tendencies, because like Prabhupada is saying, by nature, we're non-devotees, unless we're completely washed away. It has to be completely washed away in order for us to purely be situated in the Sudasattva platform. So we shouldn't consider ourselves better than the demigods, actually. They're devotees. They just have these mixed desires, but we also have them. And that's why the process of Krishna consciousness is in place for us to purify these. So, we have to be heroic, actually. We have to be heroic in the battle of Maya. What does it mean to be a hero? I remember reading in the Uddhava Gita. It was a really interesting definition. It says heroic means the ability to conquer over your mind and senses. Wow. Wow, that's a real hero. You see Disney Channel or whatever, these movies of the hero and buffing his chest and fighting and then all these women around him. This is not a hero. This is a bogus guy. A real hero is somebody who can conquer over his mind and senses, according to the Uddhava Gita, which is a very interesting definition. So we have to be heroic in the battle with Maya. But it starts by being humble, as the demigods had this mood. So, to get into some of the purport, I want to preface this by saying I am not an expert on Sankhya philosophy. Nonetheless, I can try my best just to break down a little of the points, but I will try my best. So in this first text, verse, it says, "There's nothing wanting in the creation of the Lord. All the potencies are there in a dormant state. But unless they're combined by the will of the Lord, nothing can progress. Nothing can progress without the will of the Lord, actually. This goes back to the point of just, us trying to endeavor for perfection without the mercy of the Lord. Everything is functioning on the will of the Lord. And in this next one, this is really where the Sankhya philosophy comes in. Where does it say? Yeah, so it starts talking about these 23 elements, and you think about it, it's like, I remember first going to the Bhagavatam, you think, why do I need to know this? I just want to love Krishna. I want to know Krishna's devotees. Why do I need to know about matter? Why do I need to know about all these like amalgamation of different energies? Well, the point of it is, you have to understand Krishna's potencies. God is great, but if you don't know how great He is, then it can affect your surrender. So, like these other religions, they say God is great, but they don't really know how great He is. So when you study Sankhya philosophy, you see, not even Krishna doesn't even actually in his personal feature conduct the material affairs of the universe. He does it through his energies. Just by his energy, everything is moving. So when you hear that, you realize how great God is because we're covered by this energy. This energy is very powerful. It's daivi, it's divine, but it's powerful. It's divine and it's powerful. And so when you study the Sankhya philosophy, you study different elements, you study how it goes from more subtle to gross, then you're able to distinguish between matter and spirit. You realize, okay, if all this is temporary, but I'm eternal, why am I here? And it says it in the Bhagavad Gita, actually. Those who know the end goal of of Sankhya philosophy, it says karma yoga, but then Prabhupada translates it as devotional service. Those who know that the end goal is the same, they're the same, exactly. The end goal is the same, just to understand that we're not the body or spirit, soul. So when we go through these sections of Bhagavatam, it's going to get really esoteric when you go through some of these verses. But we should understand that the point of it is to understand how powerful Krishna is. We have to understand his potencies. But then it's interesting because Prabhupada said in the end of this purport, he quoted this, "Oh Arjun, there's no necessity of you knowing about my innumerable energies." So in one end, we should know, Krishna's different energies. But on another end, a pure devotee just wants to know about Krishna. But Sukadeva Goswami, he was a pure devotee. And also Maharaj Parikshit, they're pure devotees. But they still spoke it and they heard it. Although Maharaj Parikshit, he's already in knowledge about this, he still heard it because it's transcendental. It's still pleasing to the transcendental senses of both Krishna and the devotee. And another thing, we have to inquire. We have to inquire about these higher spiritual matters. We have to try to understand to our best ability. We have to understand we're not going to understand everything. That takes humility. We're not going to understand everything just by our own erudition, But I think in the verse before, this is word. Where is it? It's in the purport. So it. Oh yeah, right here. Shwa Shakshuhu. This was in the verse yesterday. Shakshuhu. I thought that was interesting. Prabhupada translates it as personal plan, but this word Shakshuhu, that comes up actually. Most devotees should know this. Vision, divine knowledge, vision. We sing it every morning. So we can understand how the universe is functioning, not by our own will, but by this divine vision that's given to us by the Lord. But it takes humility to have this type of vision. We can't, and when we have this vision, it's not like we're seeing like infrared and we're seeing all the, it's not like that. The point is, we're seeing that everything is in relation to the Lord. This is the proper vision. When you have the proper vision that we're all meant to serve Krishna, this is divine vision. And actually, in the Uddhava Gita, also, I don't know, I really like the Uddhava Gita. That's why I quote it a lot. But Uddhava asked Krishna, "What is the best way to serve you?" And Krishna says, "See all living entities as my parts and parcels, even the dog eater, the Brahmin, and it's also in the Bhagavad Gita. But see them. I don't know why, but when I read that, I was pretty shocked. No, he also says give obeisances to them, to the dog, and I was like, what? I don't give obeisance to a dog, but they clarify it in the purport that it says that it might, due to social customs, not be, you might not be socially applicable to be able to base to a dog. But yeah, but you should at least have the mood internally. You should at least internally do so, because you're seeing him as part and parcel of Krishna. So that's the divine vision. Like when I'm on a book, sometimes I try to like to think about that. Like, I don't think this person's black, this person's white, is Indian. If you just focus, okay, they're actually part and parcel of Krishna. Not only that, Paramatma is in their heart. So, Pravitai, Nivritai, Pachiteva, Karmane. Krishna gives inclination and disinclination to the living entities. So if you meditate on the Paramatma, I'm actually gonna get to that later in my class, then actually the Paramama can inspire them to get the books actually, but you have to see them in the proper light. If you just see them all because they're like, old lady, or because they're, white or black, they're not gonna take the books. This is mundane consciousness. See them as part and parcel of Krishna. This is the highest form of worship actually. Krishna says that in the Uddhava Gita, to see all the living entities as his parts and parcels. It is very hard. It's very hard, and that's the difference between jnana and vijnana. You might have some knowledge about it, but until you have the realized knowledge, then you're still kind of fluctuating on the neophyte platform. You have to develop this realized knowledge. And the realized knowledge, it comes naturally. It awakens in you. Like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Teshamavanu kampartamahama jnana jantamaha nasayam yamabhava so jnana dipina bhasvataha. With the shining lamp of knowledge, he destroys the darkness born of ignorance. So Krishna will purify your intelligence. He'll make you see things clearly. He can make you, as far as, it was an anecdote in Transcendental Diaries, and I think it was Harikesh Maharaj. It was Maharaj at the time, but he was asking Prabhupada all about just like Jambudweep and like all the universal affairs and how things are functioning. And Prabhupada, he was asking very intricate, delicate questions, and Prabhupada was able to like answer it like without a problem. And Prabhupada had the ability to make these complex matters seem very simple because he had the divine vision. And it wasn't like some artificial thing. It was because he was surrendered to Krishna. Krishna gave him the vision to see these things. So we should just have faith that once we surrender to Krishna, we can understand this more clearly as far as the universal functions. So, like I said, we have to have firm faith in Guru and Krishna for this knowledge to be awakened in our hearts. Another thing, yeah, it's funny. So this back on this Sankhya philosophy. So the bewilderment of the mind, by understanding Sankhya philosophy, your mind actually says that it dispels the bewilderment of the mind because it hints at the point of that we're not the body, we're spirit, soul. And it's funny because I was talking to this one Christian. He was a 7-day Adventist, and he's a pastor. He was a pastor, and I was like, he asked me what these books are about. Oh, these books help you distinguish matter from spirit, soul. I mean, ultimately, we're all spirit, soul. And he interrupted me. He said, "No, you're not spirit, soul." I was like, "So what are we?" "You are breath." And I was just like, you're a pastor. You have a congregation, but you're not able to understand that we're spirit, soul. It's really bewildering, actually. It's really sad how people can't understand a basic point. That's the ABCs of spiritual knowledge. And after he said that, because he's a pastor, this is why I really like this book, Speaking Strongly in Shiva Prabhupada Service. I encourage all devotees to read it. He was a pastor. We shouldn't engage in unnecessary arguments with people. We should speak in a way that's palatable. Nonetheless, we should speak the truth in an uncompromisingly way. But with certain leaders in society who are preaching bogus philosophies, it's actually our duty to say we have to tell him the truth, not necessarily in a condescending way, but we say it in a way that's palatable and understandable. So I was trying to explain to him, actually, you are spirit. So how can you say we're not the? How can you say we're the body? How can you say we're breath? Where does breath come from? Where does breath come from? He's like, breath comes from God, and who is God? And then I kept asking him these questions. It ultimately led him to. He didn't want to admit it. He said, just talk to my wife. You know, he didn't want to. He said, just talk to my wife. Nonetheless, you know, we have to establish these fundamental truths in society. People are so misguided, they don't even realize who they are, you know? And like I said, the Sankhya philosophy that's spoken here, this is one way to come to Krishna. Ultimately, in Krishna consciousness, in the Krishna consciousness movement, I mean, if a devotee is interested in studying all this, it's not like we discourage him, but we do tell him, you know, just chant Hare Krishna, read Prabhupada's books. This in itself, this is Bhakti Yoga. This automatically instills you in the topmost yoga system or practice. Or if you want to study Sankhya yoga, that's fine. But for this preacher, whether he was Bhakti Yoga, Sankhya Yoga, whatever philosophy, he was so bewildered by his own misconceptions that he wouldn't be able to understand any philosophy I was speaking to him. So that's when you kind of just walk away. Nonetheless, it is our duty as preachers to establish the truth. Okay, we are servants of the truth. Okay, if you don't, and then he as I was talking to him, he was saying, "Oh no, you know, you should be more compromising." And I told him, actually, if I compromise with you, then I'm no better than you. Actually, we shouldn't compromise. When it's speaking the philosophy of Christian consciousness, there's no compromise. You have to speak the absolute truth. Do it in a palatable way, but do it in a way that you're fighting for Krishna. Krishna told Arjuna to fight, but he told Uddhava to go how do you say it? The ashram, Bhadragam ashram. Yeah, he told him to go, and he told him to preach. Ultimately, they're both fighting, just different ways. One was fighting physically, another was doing it through Krishna's instructions. Nonetheless, it's not, because some people can say, how come he told Uddhava to like take sannyas essentially, and then he told Arjuna to fight and stay as a Kshatriya in his duty? It could be bewildering, actually. Why? It's like, because the Uddhava Gita and the Bhagavad Gita, the philosophy is the same, actually. The conclusion is the same. But then the application was different. It could be bewildering. It's like, okay, so what do? You fight for Krishna. Whatever you do, you fight for Krishna. Whether you're a brahmachari, grihastha, vanapras, brahmana, kshatriya, you fight for Krishna. Okay, you fight, but in Kali Yuga, you do it through preaching. There's actually a chapter in this book. Opposition is a victory. Okay, if people start to oppose what you're saying, you're probably saying something right. If you're saying in tune with Krishna consciousness, if you're saying something and the mass of people are being attracted to it, you're probably watering down the philosophy. Think about it. Modern society is teaching eat meat, have sex, do drugs, make a lot of money. We're preaching the complete opposite. If you're not preaching the fundamental basics of Krishna consciousness, and people start gravitating towards just, that's the reason why a lot of people are afraid to come to devotional societies, because we're directly attacking their conditioning, their own habits, and we're making them think about what is the goal of life. You know, that's why, you know, devotees who are here, they're special souls, because out of many millions of births, you're here. Nonetheless, it's not going to, see, for the Bhakti program, for example. Oh, sorry. Let's put this back right. Yeah, for the Bhakti program, you know, it's hard to make devotees. It's not. Why is it hard to make devotees? Because we're completely breaking down their whole understanding of society. But it's our duty to do so. It's just a quote, actually, that my Guru Maharaj Bhaktivedanta Swami says. He says the combined power of all that is material can be overcome by the power of the truth, even when spoken by an apparently insignificant person. So all that is material can be overcome by the power of the truth. It might not come right off the gate. It takes time. But if we just continue to stick to the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, stick to the philosophy that Srila Prabhupada gave us, we can overcome all that's material. The power of the truth is very, very powerful, because Krishna is the truth. When we preach the truth, when we're going and preaching, we have to understand we're just a messenger, and we're just giving the message. The messenger becomes as pure as a message when it's unadulterated. But once we start having our own misconceptions with the message, then or as a messenger, when we start having our own misconceptions, then now we're starting to stray people away into these bogus philosophies. Okay, I'm not ISKCON bashing, but I've seen a lot of this. As far as let's do yoga and stretching and kirtan melas. Where does it say in Prabhupada's books we should do kirtan melas? I mean, it's encouraged we should do kirtan, but it's not that Gumars makes this point that it's not that okay, I'm only going to be serious for this 1 week in kirtan mela, but all the rest of the week I'm just going to be in Maya. No, this is kind of what ISKCON is kind of like I said, I'm not ISKCON bashing. Nonetheless, which it is my duty. I'm up here. I should at least distinguish truth from reality. This isn't the truth. The truth is to go out and give Srila Prabhupada's message to everyone. Give people the message. Give them prasadam. Go out do kirtan. Go out do harinam. But the point is, we're doing this not to facilitate their sense gratification. We're doing it to make them Krishna conscious devotees. Okay. If you use Krishna consciousness as a means for your own sense gratification, then you're no better than the karmis. Actually, you're worse than the karmis. Why? It says in the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, it says, for those who know the truth, it doesn't, I'm paraphrasing, I think it's in the last chapter, but it says for those who know the rules and regulations. Yeah, those who know the rules and regulations of Sastra, but act whimsically. They're no better than animals. That's a strong statement. You know the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita. You know the purpose of Krishna consciousness, but you're acting whimsically by these bogus philosophies. You're no better than the karmis. So we should establish the truth. We should establish the truth. We establish that we're not the body, we're the soul. That's what the essence of this purport is actually hitting that. Although it talks about false ego, sound, touch, form, taste, air. These are all material elements. And it's hinting at the fact that we are not the body, we're spirit, soul. There's something else I want to talk about. Yeah, so I could talk a little bit about time because I'm running out of time. But it says in the purport that time, therefore, is the energy of the Lord and action our own way by the direction of the Lord. So as we know, it's good to say these things over again. Time doesn't affect the activities of the devotee. And you see this practically. You could be absorbed all day reading and chanting and just like, oh wow, the day goes by. But as a karmi, you're scratching your head trying to find things to do. But in devotional society, the thing is, if you're not satisfying Krishna consciousness, time is always going to affect you. Okay, you have to reach a level of satisfaction. This is sattva gun. If you're not in a level of goodness, you're always going to be disturbed. You're always going to be hankering for more and more activities to do. Okay, we have to be satisfied in order for time to not affect us. As Prabhupada is saying. This energy is called Kali and is represented by the dark destructive goddess worshipped by persons influenced by mode of darkness or ignorance. So time affects those who are in mode of ignorance and darkness, even in passion. But those in goodness and Sudha Sattva, time is like, you're satisfied. So how can you not be satisfying Krishna consciousness? How can you not? This is the topmost level of Krishna consciousness. If you're not satisfied, this is why you're not satisfied, because you're attached to your false ego. I can explain that, okay? Actually, I was gonna speak about that a little later, but I'll just say it now so that it actually says ego as far as the elements. False ego is mentioned. So this false ego is very subtle, so much so that even in Krishna consciousness, we're seeking recognition. Okay, you're not satisfied because you're seeking recognition. While trying to glorify Krishna, you're trying to be recognized. This is why you're not satisfied. Okay, as long as you're seeking recognition, oh, I play mridanga so nicely, oh, I sing so nicely, look at this prasadam I made, look at how many books I did. You're not going to be satisfied. You'll never be satisfied. Always remember, you are an instrument. The demigods are praying, make me an instrument for your service. This is the mood we need to imbibe. If we don't have this mood, we will never be satisfied because we're always going to seek recognition. Recognition in Christian consciousness is pernicious. It's dangerous. It's actually why so many of our leaders have fallen down, because they're trying to seek recognition. And the purpose of Krishna consciousness is to make Krishna, we want to recognize Krishna as the supreme absolute truth. As his servants, we also get exalted, but we shouldn't be attached to the facilities that he's given us. Okay? We should struggle for Krishna. We should pray for his mercy. And once we get his mercy, we should be unattached to the results. This is a perfect mood of an advanced devotee in Krishna consciousness. But after struggling, there's a difference between demigods and devotees. The demigods, like for example, Indra is probably, I'm speculating, but it says the demigods, so I'm assuming he's in that category. So he prayed to Krishna for help in his universal functions. But then you see the Govardhan pastime, he's trying to kill Krishna and his inhabitants. So he prayed, but then he got attached to his opulences. That's the difference. Devotees pray, but we're not attached. Demigods, they pray, they are attached. That's kind of my understanding. That's like the main difference between devotees and demigods. So we shouldn't be attached to this. And I'm running out of time, but in the purport it also says, it talks about Paramatma a little bit. I want to talk about that. Krishna says that I entered into the material creation by my partial plenary expansion, Paramatma, or the Supersoul, and all the universes and the elements thereof. So can you go to Canto 11, chapter 23, text 57? This is the Avanti Brahmana. The song by the Avanti Brahmana. Yeah. All right, so go to translation. Okay. I shall cross over the insurmountable ocean of nescience by being firmly fixed in the service of the lotus feet of Krishna. This was approved by the previous acharyas who were fixed in firm devotion to the Lord, Paramatma, the Supersoul Personality Godhead. This is interesting. Who were fixed in devotion to the Paramatma. When I read that, I was like, wow, because it's so easy to forget that Krishna's with us, It's so easy to forget that Krishna's our best friend. He's our well-wisher, And this is another thing about recognition. Krishna's recognizing all you're doing. Why do you need recognition from other devotees? Krishna, he sees it. You're working hard. You're cleaning the toilets for Krishna. Nobody sees it. Krishna sees it. You go out. You do books for long hours of the day. And you're like, what? I just come back to some sweets? I want recognition. No. Krishna's he's seeing your activities. And when, actually, Guru Maharaj, or Bhadrakasa Swami Maharaj, he just gave a lecture. Well, it was actually a short, actually. In Salem, somebody asked Guru Maharaj about, how, is it wrong to want to get recognized by the Guru? And Guru Maharaj, in a very articulate way, says, not necessarily, but we shouldn't artificially advertise ourselves. And he made a point at the end. He said, Super Soul reveals things to devotees. I was curious what he meant by that. I was curious. He said the Super Soul revealed, in the same answer as far as should we seek recognition from the Guru, he says the Super Soul reveals things to certain devotees. What does that mean? The Super Soul is, if you're working hard to please Krishna and Guru, Krishna he's also in the heart of the Guru, just as he's in your heart. He can reveal that to your Guru. Even he might not even be with you personally. He can reveal it to your Guru. So your Guru, he's recognized. He sees your devotion. He sees how hard you're working. We shouldn't be bewildered by our false ego. So I'm already running out of time, but just a quick point. It says in the purport, the wonderful activities of material nature are due to Lord Krishna. The wonderful activities of material nature are due to Lord Krishna. It's so wonderful that we're attached to blood, pus, and stool. It is so wonderful. The wonderful activity of material nature is so. How is it that Mayas can bewilder us and be attached to literally something that's like dead and disgusting? It's very wonderful, actually. Very wonderful. But anyways, the universal creation, it is very wonderful if you think about it. And these scientists, Rishi Kumar inspired me to, debunk these scientists. They don't understand the cause of creation. They see it as wonderful, but they think this sense of it being wonderful came out of his own, came out of nothing. And one argument I really like to make to scientists that defeats him every time is his fine-tuning theory. All right, so fine-tuning theory, if those who don't know, pretty much the sun has an orbit. And scientists even have articulated that if the sun deviates from its orbit just a little bit, just like a fraction, just an inch, not even an inch, like a centimeter, destruction. Everything's finished. Just by a little, if the sun moves off its course just a little bit. The fine-tuned theory. And you asked him, how is it possible that something with so much mass has been going in the same orbit and it doesn't go off its track? How is it possible? And he said, well, I'm like, so you have a car, right? And cars has mass. If you just drive your car, don't have your hands on the wheel, will it stay on the track? No, it will move. Why? So, if you really sit down and think about it, the scientists' argument on the universe is completely is really just, I don't know what another word, stupid. It's dumb. It's dumb because if scientists they accept this fine tuning theory. If you pose it to them, they'll accept it. Yeah, that's true. Oh, it's just by chance that what they say is certain universes, the orbits they got out of whack, and then what they say? No, they said the Big Bang theory had multiple universes. There's multiple Big Bangs, but then our universe it had like just a perfect situation. It's just really ridiculous. It's just completely ridiculous. So that's why we had to speak strongly. We had to establish the truth, and we had to present the Bhagavad Gita as it is, without compromise. We had to speak strongly. And just last point, I do want to read one anecdote. Like I said, we're no actually better. If you think about it, who are we? We were also infected by this scientist disease, this disease of materialists. So it's our duty. We don't preach to them out of hatred. We dislike their philosophy. We don't dislike the person. Okay, so in speaking strongly, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, so first we should show anger to who? Towards our own sinful propensities, such as our desire for profit, adoration, and distinction, and our own propensity to cheat others. We must correct ourselves first. Otherwise, we cannot correct others. Then we have to correct those who are related to us, who are envious of the spiritual master in Krishna, and are pulling us towards material enjoyment by tempting us. This is the secret of success. The secret of success first, you have to first recognize your own faults before you try to, correct the faults of others, If not, then, like I said, you become no different than them. We're not better necessarily. Our philosophy is better than the karmis and the Gyanis and yogis, but intrinsically, we're all spirit soul. So we have to correct ourselves first. We should be angry at the fact that we have turned away from Christians for so many thousands of years. We should be angry. It's like Saraswati said, this is purifying, actually. Some devotees like, oh, I'm angry because they did blaspheme devotees, but for myself, I blaspheme devotees, but it's not us. Who cares, No, first, if you want to correct others, first correct yourself. Okay, so it's 8:30. I'm going to stop here, and I'll open up for any comments or questions. We're not going out today, are we?
Yeah, Chandan said that today is
They said regular Bhagavatam.
Well, there's only 2 devotees who are going out. So, if they want to. So it's only 2 devotees, only you and him. So in case you want to leave the class, you're allowed to do so. Just it's up to you.
Oh, sorry about that. I thought Chandan said regular Bhagavatam.
It's fine.
Right.
That's what Chandan announced in the morning.
Yeah.
So, this is a anecdote from Hari Shauri Prabhu's diary. It's really, really interesting. Pushpa Krishna Maharaj took up from where we left off yesterday at Bhagavad Gita chapter 16, text 17, describing the demonic nature. Self-complacent, always impudent, deluded by wealth and false prestige, they sometimes perform sacrifices in name only without following any rules or regulations. You would kind of assume, because they're mentioning about sacrifices in name only without following rules and regulations, it's kind of like speaks about, maybe demons Vedic demons who are performing sacrifice like Indrajit, but not following the rules and regulations, deluded by wealth and false prestige. But Prabhupada, I was amazed. Prabhupada didn't wait until the purport to make a comment. The description perfectly fit the pseudo-spiritualists of today. Modern yogic society, transcendental meditation, whatever nonsense they like, they do. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that yogis should sit down in a secluded, sacred place, and they find out yogi class in America's big cities and hotels. This is their program. Their prescription is that one should sit down in a solitary, sacred place alone, and these rascals are all holding class. All smoker, drunkard, women hunters, they are yogis? What do you think? Is it all right? This is going on. And they are accepted. Yogi this, yogi that. In India, they cannot find out because people are not so fool as yet that in the big cities, in big hotel, yoga practice. India, although so fallen, they will not accept. They will at once detect, here is a rascal. But here, their dhamba mana, their qualification, they've got money. So whatever they accept, that is all right. Because they've got money. No other qualification required. They can pay, that's all. So I was just amazed that Prabhupada is calling this out so clearly. Now it's going on in India also. Everybody's fine with it. India has also become idiots. Everybody's a fool now. But it's very interesting that Prabhupada is making the point that this didn't exist in India, in Vedic society, even in the 1970s. Because people knew that this kind of yoga class is completely bogus. And now they do it in front of the deities in our movement.
Very unfortunate.
You know? I mean, it's too clear. Big hotels paying. It's
Yeah, it's funny though. Actually, I was just reading in also the Transcendental Diary that Prabhupada was recounting how with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he was very harsh with these bogus yogis. He was very strict and he was calling them out. People were scared of him, so much so that they bribed the police to try to kill him. Just because he was speaking out against these yogis, and they tried to kill him. And it's like, Prabhupada's doing the same thing. He's like, I don't care what what people think. We say how it is, But yeah, it's unfortunate that this is going on in our society, and nobody's really saying anything about it. They think it's kind of just, those bridge preaching, but it's really unfortunate.
No, it's yeah. And there was one other thing that I read about the scientists, here it is. So these rascals, Prabhupada said, meaning the scientists, they are writing Gopal Ban's Mahabharata, and the rascal government is paying them. They will never be able to produce anything. Challenge them. As soon as we say, make an egg, that we cannot say. They'll chant chemical evolution, and get Nobel Prize, rascals. But how the people are so foolish that they believe this? Prabhupada repeated his challenge to the scientists to make an egg and produce life. It is something that he has said many times. This is very simple. You see everything, white and yellow. Produce. Chemicals are white, some chemicals are yellow also. Just like hydrofoam, it's yellow. And sodia bicarb, white. Or potash cyanide is white. So you've got so many chemicals. Combine and pack it in a cell, put it under the incubator. Why, rascal, you do not do this? He emphasized the great fraud that they are engaged in. Beat them with shoes. Rascal, you are cheating in this way. Beat them with shoes, that's all. That is the only punishment. Hundreds of men demand them. Do it, otherwise don't talk nonsense. If you talk nonsense, we will beat you with our shoes. Then they'll stop all this nonsense talk. There is no punishment for their cheating and taking money. Although his rhetoric was very strong, his tone was devoid of any envy or hatred. In one sense, as a self-realized soul, he is a neutral observer. But in another sense, as Krishna's representative, out of compassion for the fallen, suffering, conditioned souls, he cannot refrain from condemning the perpetration of illusion which keeps them firmly bound in the material world. So
That's a nice anecdote.
it's kind of also the last point that he made was in line, about speaking strongly. But Prabhupada is also saying this without any envy or hatred.
He said this.
Amazing.
He said it to a scientist, or he said to
No,
his
this is to
disciples.
devotees.
It was funny though
Disciples.
because Prabhupada, when it came to like certain scientists, he would actually behave very properly. He would treat them like a gentleman and stuff. But then with his disciples, he'd be super heavy. Like you said, he doesn't hate the scientists. He just hates the ideology. Okay.
You were speaking about unbook distribution, approaching people. In the Uddhava Gita, Krishna says he's pleased when you see everybody with the equal vision, Brahmana, cow, dog eater. And as a book distributor may sometimes feel oneself to be more elevated, the holier-than-thou mentality.
Yes, sir.
And practically when you go out with that attitude, you get completely crushed. Vijay Prabhu, who wrote this book, Treasures of the Brahmardanga, something nice he says, that Lord Chaitanya says, in order to chant the holy names constantly, we need to feel ourselves lower than the straw in the street. And practically, this applies on book distribution, we should see ourselves as lower than the people we're approaching. In Lord Chaitanya, he's, patita pavana. And so if we can see that, we've gotten the mercy, Lord, like we're the most fallen, Lord Chaitanya saved us. And this is just a good way of, good attitude to go out in book distribution with. Another thing, to actually feel oneself lower than the straw in the street, practically. And another nice way to look on book distribution, regarding seeing everybody with the equal attitude, is that, everybody's parts and parcels of Krishna, we're parts and parcels of Krishna. And so we should approach people like we're approaching an old friend. That, is like my brother, my sister, whatever.
Yeah. Actually, this is Sankirtan Prabhu in Baltimore. He says that to people. We're all part of the same family.
Yeah, exactly.
We are. I mean, well, some people are little, rascal family members. But yeah, we're all part of the same family. But of course, like, we do have to have some discrimination. Just like, although we see a tiger and a brahmana as spirit soul, we're not going to go hug a tiger. Same thing, if we see somebody that's overtly just envious, they just see you, they just got a mean look on their face.
Oh, he's confused right now. Come back later.
Yeah. You have to have some level of intelligence, because you don't want to preach to people who are completely envious off the jump. So, I mean, that principle is like, it's a basic truth, but it's still, you have to use some discrimination when it comes to certain people. Yeah.
So you were talking about like the fine-tuning principle thing,
Yeah, fine-tuning theory.
and
Yes, on.
and there's a couple other ones, like if gravity was like 0.01% different, like nothing would be able to like orbit, or if like protons were like 0.0 and like 40 other zeros, one like charge different, then like atoms couldn't form or something like that.
Right.
Just wanted to add that.
Yeah, it's
There's
true.
like a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, it's like so many like intricacies in the universal creation that, like, if one small detail is messed up, nothing can go according to Krishna's plan. But if you really think about it, their ideology is just, they have all these degrees and they can't even understand like a basic point that like there might be something controlling. Like, but I guess it's our duty to try to establish the truths of Bhagavad Gita, despite any foolish ideologies. Yes, sir.
There's one question online.
Yeah.
Can you give some examples of when speaking? Can you give some examples of when speaking palatably can become compromising?
It should never become compromising. Well,
Examples of when.
when.
Speech can become
I see.
when you're trying to be palatable.
I see. I mean, I have an example. I'm trying to think of a certain, like, instance where, like, most devotees know. But one thing I can say is that, when it comes to, like, university preaching, you go to universities and, somebody asks you, it's just about, like, like, yeah, about meditation and yoga. And then you just tell them, yeah, all yoga is, in one sense, is on the ring of yoga, on the yoga ladder, it can lead you up to bhakti yoga. But if you don't establish clearly the difference between bhakti yoga and these other yogas, then it can be compromising. The main thing is, you speak in a palatable way, such as like encourage them to continue on the spiritual journey. But you have to be very clear that bhakti yoga is the supreme practice in this age, in every age. Okay, it's in every age we have to practice bhakti yoga. If you don't establish that, then what happens is you start to compromise to other people's false ideologies. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati says that anything short of bhakti yoga is atheism. That's a strong statement. That's a very strong statement, So, pure bhakti yoga. So you should establish that. Although it might sound, pleasing, like, yeah, you can do your stretches, but just chant at the same time, or, you can do You can do whatever your mystic meditation, but just take prasadam. This is like it's compromising. You have to let them know, okay, what you're doing is actually not going to bring you the love of Krishna, because the goal of life is not to perform yoga from mystic cities. The purpose of life is to love Krishna. So you have to be very, very blunt about it. Really, just be straight up blunt about it. That no, yoga, bhakti yoga is a supreme process. So that's my way of answering. You have something you want to say about that? Okay. Anyone else? Mataji's. Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.